a major step backward for the Colorado program. Mike Sanford, not that dude. You're watching right on ROQ Buffs Spot.
Running the option on first down. Hagan has it. He has room. He's got one man to beat. Now he pitches to Flanagan, and he may take it all the way. Flanagan's in for the touchdown. He needs 28 yards to get him to 2,000. Here is the give to Salam. Salam to the outside. He's down to the 50. He's got 2,000. He's on his way. 20, 15, 10. Lets it go. He's got three people down there. The ball's up in the air. Caught. Graham is out the football. And Graham is in the end zone. Greenberg, play action, walks one, got his man, it's Jeremy Home. Nobody's going to catch him. Third down and 7. Blitz comes. Scooped up by Colorado, and a big man running all the way.
Welcome in and welcome back. That is right. You're watching right on ROQ Buffs Spot. I am your host, Tyson Quiller. Thanks again for checking us out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Send me your feedback at RightOnQCS on Twitter, RightOnQCS@gmail.com. Boy, did we come crashing back down to reality over the weekend. What a humiliating, embarrassing loss. Just a reminder of where the program is at, and a reminder that we need to remain vigilant as we are moving forward with macro level things. Athletic director, head coach, quarterback, possible quarterback in the transfer portal. We need to remain vigilant about these things. We, the fan base, set the standard and the expectations for this program, and then they are to respond to it as an administration, not the other way around. So we're going to do that every week. We're going to be doing that here. You know what you tuned in for, so let's go ahead and check out the game. Now, Colorado actually had won the last 2 games at Oregon State. The Buffs hadn't lost in Corvallis since the 27th of October, 2018. We've dominated up there. And yet, heading into this one, you already had the apology chorus coming out. Well, the Buffs, they can't be expected to beat Oregon State. I mean, this shouldn't be a measuring stick game for Sanford and the team. That's all crap. Stanford lost by just 1 to Oregon State this season. Washington State lost by just 14 at Oregon State, and Fresno State lost by just 3 at Oregon State. And yet, we're supposed to be believing that the Buffs, it's acceptable for them to lose by 10 times as many points at Oregon State as Fresno State did? 33? Really? You start the game with the same pitiful offensive effort we've had every game all season long. 3 and out, it was 2 weak runs, and then kind of a deep pass that, had 0 chance of completion. The Buffs defense then did step up and forced a fumble recovered by Terrence Lang, but this stagnant, terrible offense then fumbled as well. Both of Oregon State's first 2 drives started on our side of the field. The game was over right there. They just run. 4th and 1, they bring in a quarterback. His nickname is the Jack Hammer. Probably not going to pass the ball. Sure enough, first down, run right up the middle. They run it 80% of the time on the season in the red zone. So, of course, 2 more runs and a touchdown. I really think the defense just realized at that point they were going to get nothing out of the offense. And considering the way that drive went, their offensive line just dominated our defensive line, completely punked them. And once again, it wasn't until our 3rd offensive drive that we even got a first down. But on that drive too, 2 first downs, and then we punt. 4th and 4 from their 48. 4th and 4 from their 48, we're down 14-0. Mike Sanford has no clue what he's doing from the game calling perspective, understanding the ebbs and flows of the game. You have to go for it there. The game was getting out of touch, out of hand. You had to go for it there. But sure enough, we punt. But hey, Oregon State's head coach, he clearly sensed the moment. That's why they did that onside kick after going up 14-0. He realized, hey, we can put a dagger in this game right now, only a minute 30 into the second quarter, and be done with it. But we recovered the onside kick, so we have the short field. Move the ball all the way down to Oregon State's 28-yard line, and you need a touchdown here. You need a touchdown to stay with the Beavers. So 1st and 10, Shrout holds onto the ball way too long, takes a 6-yard sack. Great. 2nd down and 16, you go with J. Stacks for a run up the middle for 2 yards. Really? Really? When you need 16 yards, you run the big man up the middle. And then they finally spread things out a little bit on 3rd and 14, but Shrout checks it down to Brady Russell. He just gets 6 yards. I mean, you have to sense the moment there and understand we can't settle for 3 points. But Cole Becker drills through the 44-yarder, and you know what comes next. Because everyone knows what comes next. I knew it. You knew it. 5 plays, 55 yards. Oregon State in the end zone again. We're down 21-3. I mean, Mike Sanford is not the guy. Not the guy. We can eliminate him from the head coaching search. Here's what he had to say after the game. I was pleased with our energy. I just think the minute details of execution were ultimately what let this game get away from us. I mean, are you kidding me? Minute details? Seriously? Sanford got flat out coached, no question about it. Shrout doesn't know how to read the defense at all. He reads blitz when it's coverage and then kind of speeds up and hurries his progression. He sits in the pocket too long when they blitz. And the offensive line, by the way, was just awful. So we get the ball back with 1:45 left and all 3 timeouts, down 21-3. Need a touchdown here because they get the ball coming out of the second half. Once again, Sanford does not call a single timeout until there's like 23 seconds left. And what then took place was almost unbelievable. 3rd and 10, a crossing route to Arias, another dropped pass. I mean, he clearly has a mental thing going on. I think you can't put him on the field on 3rd downs. But before you think this is just an Arias thing, 4th and 10, wide open across the middle, Jordan Tyson drops the ball. What? On the positive side, though, you finally realized the power running game with J. Stacks, and we're really kind of moving the ball. So, of course, what do Patterson and Sanford decide to do? Move away from it. First play that they don't go with Stacks is that 6-yard sack. Man, trading punts and field goals for touchdowns, that's not going to beat anybody. No. Coach Sanford, no. It's not the minute details. You are not cut out for this job. I'll get into this later, but this new search company better not be starting with Sanford and Ryan Walters as a default as the leading candidates. A 36-year-old coordinator with no head coaching experience and a dude who's proven through 2 interim games that he's not capable of being an effective head coach. Now let's get to our report cards. The defense just would not switch out of that too high safety look early as Oregon State's just running the ball right down our throats. Run after run after run after run. We're going 2 high safeties every time. In addition, this defense was very undisciplined, especially early. A couple of penalties, a lot of mucking around, pushing after plays. This is the problem when it's all emotion. The emotion was great and worked to our advantage last week. But when you don't couple that with discipline, that's when you get penalties, turnovers, etc. This unit came up with just 1 sack in the game. Look at that. Oregon State ran the ball twice as many times as they passed, which we knew was the game plan that could not have been more obvious. And then look at that. Oh my God. Oregon State was 7 for 11 on 3rd downs. That's just a killer extending drives. So Joe Chapman gets a D+, and the only reason it's really that high even is because they did come out at the start of the game and gave us a chance. Okay, the offense surrendered right away, but the defense at least forced a fumble, gave us a chance on a shorter field. But once the defense realized that the offense was bringing nothing to the plate, they just flat out quit again. I mean, that opening drive at a halftime for Oregon State, 2 guys wide open down the middle of the field. Jamar Montgomery, just a terrible attempt at a tackle, and I don't even blame him all that much. At least he was there. The defense was completely out of position. 60-yard touchdown, just pathetic. I don't know what you would call that other than the defense quitting, and that's on Chapman. Now, before you think I'm being too harsh on Chapman, on to the offensive coordinator, Clay Patterson. Brady Russell, Daniel Arias, and Jordan Tyson all dropped easy catches in this game. Even our best receiver, Montana Lamonius Craig, had a drop in the second half. 3rd and 6, he would have walked right into the end zone. And like I mentioned, the only dude who saw any success really on offense in the first half, Jay Lee Stacks, we didn't see him again until 3:21 left in the third quarter. Sure enough, he comes in, bowls through for a touchdown. And once again, with this stupid determination to be balanced, 29 passes, 28 runs, that's great, dude. We lost by 33 points, but it's neat that you got numbers close. This was unquestionably a failure for Clay Patterson. And remember now, I told you last week, after not having any real turnover issues this season, we had 3 last week against Cal, I was concerned that this could become a damaging trend. Sure enough, 4 turnovers in this game. And then look at that. 2 of 13 on third and fourth down conversions. Bro, that's not on the players. You are just flat out setting them up for failure with horrendous play calling for your team to succeed on just 15% of those plays. Check this out. The Buffs offense had just 67 yards by the time Oregon State was already up 21-3 in the game. And lest we forget Mike Sanford. This was the second worst loss of the season. Worse than a 25-point loss to TCU, worse than a 31-point loss to Air Force, worse than a 28-point loss to UCLA, worse than a 23-point loss to Arizona, 33 points. And are you kidding me, Buffalo's Wire, with this crap? After the game, Sanford had plenty to say, and most of it was encouraging. Could he be the future head coach for the Buffs? Hell no. The only thing that we know that he has brought to this program is energy, which is fantastic, except that crossed the line into recklessness on Saturday, and that manifested itself with drops, coverage busts, and missed assignments. The defense had a massive drop-off in production, and like I said, in my estimation, ultimately quit. And the same offensive issues we've battled all season, I might argue this was the worst offensive performance all year. I mean, now you've got more drops, turnovers into the situation, and the offensive line, like I said, just soft as a wet paper bag. I told you this last week, and it is true. Oregon State is extremely soft and inexperienced up front. Even Montana State's running back went for 135 yards on this front. This defensive line has accounted for only 2.5 sacks all year. That is their weakness. So our offensive line was awful against a soft and inexperienced D-line. Embarrassing. This loss at Oregon State was an abject failure, completely unacceptable, and there are no more excuses for Sanford. This was as poorly coached as any game Durrell has coached. And I'm going to be really pissed if we end up hiring him because Buffwire and others are already kind of laying the foundation and groundwork, softening and lowering our expectations. And all this stuff, what coach will want to come here? No coaches want to come here. No, we will not accept that as a standard. There's absolutely no reason we can't go after a Bronco Mendenhall, a Gary Patterson, a Tom Herman. These guys, Paul Christ, there's no reason why we can't. This program is top 40 in the nation in football revenue. We went over this several weeks ago, okay? Top of the line, elite facilities. We've got such a great, wonderful tradition. And I just saw a video the other day, okay, of Stanford, as they're taking the field for their game last Saturday. The stadium's basically empty. And we looked at this picture last week. This is UCLA. This is the Rose Bowl with an undefeated UCLA team, top 10, facing a top 10 Utah team. And this was the showing they were able to provide. You do not have that in Boulder. We bring 50,000 fans to the stands, okay? We have every major pillar and hallmark to be successful. We will not accept this mealy-mouthed, watered down, we should lower our expectations. No. We tell the administration what the standards should be and what our expectations are, and they need to meet it or we will hold them accountable. But with that being said, I understand there is a real hill to climb here. Okay, and that starts with addressing this corrosive loser culture that you see with the Detroit Lions, the Colorado Rockies, right? These programs that just are failures for so long. That Jordan Tyson drop hit him right in the chest. Just like the defense with that massive breakdown coming out of halftime, the 60-yard touchdown pass. This is what happens when a program erodes. The players not only lose trust in the coaches, but they also begin to lose trust in each other. The Jordan Tyson and Montana Lemonius Craig drops are not because they're bad players. Those things happen because those guys just flat out feel like they need to make everything happen on one play. Every time they touch the ball, they got to get to the end zone. They're looking around going, I'm the only one who can do this. And so they turn before they've secured the catch. They're moving ahead of where they should be fundamentally. Similarly, on the defense, you start losing trust in your teammates to fulfill their assignments. And so you'll see some of the better players, so Trevor Woods, Josh Chandler-Semedo, some of these guys, Quinn Perry, they'll start edging over to help out their teammates because they don't believe their teammate can fulfill their assignment. And then sure enough, next thing you know, they're out of position and a big run or a big pass gets through in their assignment. I want to take you all the way back to week 1. At halftime, it was 6-7. You remember who we played? TCU. They are now 7-0 and number 7 in the country. Okay, I bring that up to say there is talent on this team, at least on the defense, to keep them within 1 point at halftime with a top 10 team in the country. So it's lazy to say the major issue is we don't have the players. But as this thing spirals down, everyone feels like, I said, like they need to do everything on one play. I mean, who is probably the most successful head coach, like him or hate him, in the last 2 decades? Bill Belichick. And what's his mantra? Do your job. You do your job. Because when you're worried about everyone else and whether they can do their job or whatever, you end up failing at your job, and now you and that other player has failed at their job. These things are not easy to fix, and I understand they do take some time. But one thing we do know, and we have seen, that can really catalyze a culture change is when a new head coach comes in that commands respect. The players buy into that, and they slowly begin to trust each other again as well. Now we know when a program is trying to kind of make these changes that hopefully we are doing to get back to being a productive, solid, winning program, things can get worse before they get better. We know this. And so this is what worse looks like. That's why it's so important to get the right leader for this program and not just settle for the interim or some coordinator just because he was a buff. We tried that already with John Embry. And additionally, if we do just settle, then we went through all of this, the worse, the getting worse, before getting better. We went through all of this, and the players went through all of it for nothing. Like I said, I refuse to believe that we can't get a better and more proven head coach. I will not allow the administration to lower my standards that far, and I don't think you should either. We will never get better unless we demand better. These are Phil DeStefano and Rick George's emails. I would simply encourage you to send them a message and remind them of what our expectations are out of the program around here. Okay? Now, in the meantime, let's preview this Arizona State game coming up Saturday. Now, kickoff at Folsom Field will be at 5:30 p.m. Arizona State is currently a 13-point favorite on the road in Folsom. Remarkably, this battle of 2 bad teams is going to be televised on ESPNU. These 2 teams are a combined 3-11 this season. They have each only beaten one Division I team, and Arizona State has not won a road game in 350 days. CU should win this game. No excuses for Mike Sanford in this one. Now, just like the Buffs, the Sun Devils have an interim head coach as well after firing Herm Edwards. So what does this Buffalo's defensive unit need to do in this game? Arizona State's offense is 97th in the nation in total yards. This will be significantly less of a challenge for the Buffs defense than last week. Much more along the lines of the Cal offense production-wise. I mentioned Arizona State's offense was 97th. Cal, who this defense absolutely shut down 2 weeks ago, they had the 85th most yards per game on offense. The Sun Devils have lost 3 of their last 4 games, but how? Their only win was also the only game that this dude, the Wyoming transfer Xavier Valladay, rushed for more than 100 yards in. Last week, a really bad Stanford team held Valladay to just 76 yards on the ground. Additionally, Arizona State's only victory in the last 4 weeks was also the only game that this dude, Emory Jones, did not pass for over 200 yards. I mean, from a production perspective, this dude is the exact same quarterback as we faced last week. About 200 yards passing per game. But check this out. He only has 5 passing touchdowns on the season. That's 7 games, 5 passing touchdowns. Stop the run, force the pass. It could not be more clear. And we better not be playing 2 high safeties all first half like we did last week. Now there is one more caveat. Jones is a bit mobile, the quarterback. You might want to try and keep him in the pocket. So deploying pressure from the outside, I think, really needs to be mixed in. But again, it could not be more clear. Stop the run. For the front 7 on this defense, on the snap, they need to be leaning forward on the balls of their feet, not leaning back on the heels of their feet. Now, before we get out of here, let's check back in with the 2023 transfer portal. First and foremost, this Buffs offense hasn't even scored 100 points yet this season. That's 7 games, and we haven't scored 100 points. We absolutely must pick up an upperclassman quarterback from the portal for next year. And the good news is there already are available upperclassman quarterbacks in the portal. So, as we head into Halloween, the spooky transfer portal that Rick George and Phil DeStefano don't like. Now, I talked about Jack Tuttle from Indiana last week. You also have these 4 guys. Boise State quarterback Hank Bachmeier would be a grad transfer. Wisconsin quarterback Deacon Hill. San Diego State quarterback Will Haskell. And Arizona quarterback Jordan McLeod. Now, of this grouping, I think Bachmeier is a proven quarterback, a proven talent. He's thrown for over 300 yards in many, many games, started for 2 or 3 seasons at Boise State. I think you pursue him. Now, that doesn't mean you have to lock somebody down today. Okay, as the season progresses, as it goes on, more and more guys are going to put their names in the transfer portal. We need to remain vigilant looking at this portal. As they come into the portal, I will bring them to you. We can fully vet them, but we need to act, and it's abundantly clear now. We cannot go into next year with Shrout and McCowan. There needs to be an upperclassman, a more established quarterback that we can roll with, maybe get 6 wins next year. Anyways, moving on from that, we have a pair of upperclassmen, former 4-star defenders that I think are interesting to look into. Now, they really haven't produced much in their time in college, but apparently that talent is there. First is Tyler Manoa. This is a defensive lineman from UCLA. This just seems pretty clear that he feels like Chip Kelly hasn't really given him a fair shot. So into the portal he goes for his final season, and I think their loss could certainly be our gain. And our next transfer portal kind of feature player is Kejuan Markham, and he's a safety from Arizona State. Now, his situation is different. I think he was kind of a Herm Edwards guy. And with him getting the axe, Markham wants out. The dude would have 2 years of eligibility left because of that COVID extra year. So, I mean, listen, it's early, and maybe these guys aren't the best fits yet, but we have to keep our eye on the portal, like I said, and as more guys go in, be ready to attack when we see the right guy. Now, I do want to get to a little bit of your feedback, keep you guys engaged. Remember, I view this show as a way for us to put forth our ideas, to vet them, and that includes you. So let's look at a little bit of feedback you've given me. First, David Mandel. The bottom line is there isn't a coach alive who can win consistently in Boulder unless the idiots at the top of the CU administration are removed, in particular, Phil DeStefano. If you think Phil gives a rip about the football program, I have a bridge to sell you. Now, I have been thinking about the best way to respond to this comment for several days now, and so, let's just do this right here, okay? Take it away, Phil.
We are at a watershed moment in college athletics. With conference realignment, NIL, the transfer portal, and uncertainty surrounding the NCAA's very existence, the college athletics environment has never been so turbulent. Athletics can provide a gateway to all of the important work we're doing throughout the campus and I know our football program will once again match the ideals we strive for in our academic programs. The University of Colorado Boulder is a premier destination with great academics, facilities, student-athlete resources, and a proud and passionate fan base.
This guy. I mean, of course, this dude doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand the changing landscape of college athletics. Okay, you heard what he just said. All of these different things, NIL, transfer portal, conference realignment, we don't even know if the NCAA will exist in a year. And it's like, wow, yeah, that's a lot of challenges you have to address. Hey, Phil, of the 131 other college football teams in Division I, do they not have to also address those issues? Why do we have to be the worst out of all of them at addressing these issues? That's the problem, Phil. But here is where I will kind of disagree with you, David, is because you say a coach cannot possibly succeed consistently with an administration that doesn't care about football. We see every week across the college football landscape, there are tons of programs who have administrations that don't care at all about football, and yet they somehow find a way to succeed. Now, I want to couple that note with this one to try and put a finer point on this. Okay, from Christian Martinez. David, Christian, thank you both for watching and checking it out and leaving a message. For decades, CU football coaches have asked for assistance from CU leadership to get certain student athletes admitted. Phil DeStefano just confirmed no changes are on the horizon. How important is the transfer portal to the success of today's football programs? Well, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU specifically because it is nearly impossible for transfer student athletes to be admitted to Notre Dame. Let's not compare Notre Dame's football program resources to what exists in Boulder. Appreciate your insight and analysis. Let's see how this plays out and who Lance Carl, Rick George, selects to be the next head coach. Lance Carl, for those of you uninitiated, Lance Carl is, and I quote, the Director of Player Development and Alumni Relations. That's referring to this topic that was brought up a while back about the transfer requirements getting into the program. Again, I think this is kind of falling for the banana in the tailpipe, because if either of these, Phil DeStefano or the transfer requirements, were lowered, it's not like the program would turn around overnight. You need sustained leadership from the head coach and from the athletic director to initiate real and market change. Now, let me just say this real quick. The comment about Brian Kelly heading from Notre Dame to LSU, and I know he's commented on the difficulty or the high level of standards to get transfer players into Notre Dame. When he's talking about that, he's talking about clearing the hurdle from being number 4 in the country to number 1. Okay, because these transfer requirements clearly didn't keep them from going to a national championship game against Alabama, going to the playoff. Okay, Colorado is a long way off from that. So I think that's kind of a very different discussion. I don't believe that this situation with the transfer requirements is anywhere near that significant. Now, is it wrong? Yes, I think it's wrong. Okay, we are not Princeton. We are not Stanford. There's another message I got from Chu here. I'll put it up here real quick. Give you your props. He says that that's an unpopular opinion to say that we shouldn't consider ourselves among the elite programs like Harvard and Princeton. No, I don't think that's an unpopular opinion, or at least it's not with me, and I don't think it is with a lot of the people who watch this. We should absolutely lower their standards a little bit to give players a chance to come in. Now, with that being said, here's why I don't think that it's all that important or all that much of a cumbersome hurdle. This is not why we have won, 5 games in the last 2 years. 1 game this year. This is not the reason why that's happened. It may make it more difficult to win a little bit, but that's not what makes you a 1-11, 0-12, 2-10 program perennially. Now take a look at this. These are all schools with stricter transfer requirements than Colorado. All of these schools, Stanford, Duke, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, UCLA, Cal, USC, Virginia, Michigan, Wake Forest, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Florida, Boston College, Illinois, Texas, and Wisconsin. So you can already see there, Stanford, they're moderately better, I suppose, than the Buffs are this year. But, UCLA, USC, okay? These are UCLA 6-1, USC 6-1 on the year, okay? 18 Power 5 schools have stricter transfer requirements than does the Buffaloes. All but 2 of them has won at least 3 games this year. One of them is undefeated, and 5 of these teams have just 1 loss on the year. So this is what I'm saying. Why aren't these teams decimated by the transfer requirements? Again, like I said, it would make things easier, yes. But the leap to saying it's impossible, it's not impossible to win with these kind of transfer requirements. Do I think they should be changed? Yes. Do I think Phil DeStefano should go? Yes. Do I think that that's what's keeping us, that burying us in the basement of college football? No. Now, there are rumors that Rick George has been interviewing elsewhere, and, to be quite honest, I couldn't care less about that. Whether he stays, whether he goes, I think even it could be quite possible that it would be better to clear out the entire athletic hierarchy, meaning if Rick George went and took another job and just kind of rebuilt. And CU has already hired the firm Eastman and Bodine to look for this new head coaching search. So that's already in progress as well. Now, we hit a lot of topics today, a lot of maybe emotional conversations. Feel free, let me know what you think. Tell me where I got it right, where I got it wrong. Send me your feedback at RightOnQCS on Twitter, RightOnQCS@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thanks so much for checking this out. Thanks for the support. Let me remind you now, okay, tomorrow, Wednesday, October 26th, is Pac-12 Media Day for the basketball season. So I will be shortly thereafter, maybe this coming weekend, coming out with my preview of the Buffs basketball season. We're looking forward to, it's a young team, a lot of talent, a lot of uncertainty. Right now, they're not getting really any props from the national media. They all have them kind of bottom half of the Pac-12. I don't think that's the case. I think they're better. I think they're getting dogged, and they're actually better than what the national media is saying right now. But we will dive into that. Also looking forward to the Buff game against Arizona State coming up this Saturday. But, stay strong, keep the faith, keep your heads up, Buff fans. Focusing on micro-level expectations. We're not giving up on this season. Mike Sanford, we're going to hold him to our expectations. At the same time, kind of a dual track, same time, macro level expectations when we're looking for maybe another athletic director, but certainly a head coach, and also an upperclassman quarterback in that transfer portal, setting us up for next year and years to come. So, until next time, as always, go Buffs.
Running the option on first down. Hagan has it. He has room. He's got one man to beat. Now he pitches to Flanagan, and he may take it all the way. Flanagan's in for the touchdown. 28 yards to get him to 2,000. Here is the give to Salam. Salam to the outside. He's down to the 50. He's got 2,000. He's on his way. 20, 15, 10. Lets it go. He's got 3 people down there. The ball's up in the air. Caught. Graham is out the football. And Graham has for the end zone. Greenberg, play action, walks one.